First off, Rufus, I'm really happy you're here. I've been on something of a Rufus Wainwright jag over the last few months. Ever since I saw this incredible movie, the tribute concert that was filmed of your mother and all of your family singing, it's sort of like a memorial service.
Yes.
It was I'm a movie critic here among many things, and one of the things, it's easily the most emotional and moving film I've seen all year.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you about what that experience was like, singing songs, all of you, your extended family and all your friends, singing the songs your mother wrote. It felt like the best funeral service or memorial service ever, and yet it was so public.
Yes.
How hard or how easy was that for you to do?
Well, I mean, the film is called "Sing Me the Songs That Say I Love You," a concert for Kate McGarrigle, and it was made by the great filmmaker Leanne Lunson, who made Leonard Cohen, "I'm Your Man." She's very well known for that film. So this is her latest musical tribute to a legendary artist, and my mother certainly was a legendary artist, Kate McGarrigle. And I don't know, I mean, certainly it was the hardest thing I ever had to do, was to go through that period and mourn for her loss. But on the other hand, she left Martha and I with such an incredible legacy of music and lyrics, and it was easy to kind of be transported through it through that vehicle of song, and I a lot of people ask me if doing music is therapeutic, and I'm very quickly to say no, it's not therapeutic at all. Therapeutic, but I would say that it does get you through it faster. Like it's kind of high speed. Emotions, and because you're kind of thrust with so much at the same time.
Speeds up the mourning process.
Yeah. So I recommend it, but it's if you can, but of course that's not the case, because there was not a lot of people like my mom.
Did her songs take on new meaning in the context of her passing at all?
Yes, very much so. I mean, I was immediately struck by a lot of the lines and how they foreshadowed her passing. My mother often referenced death and the end of things, and it always seemed at the time that it was just sort of this romantic notion that she had, maybe related to Stephen Foster songs from the 19th century or something. But then, when of course her having died so young at 63. It just took on this whole new meaning where I do strongly believe that songs are magical, and that they do foretell what will happen. I mean, I don't want to read too much into that.
Yeah.
But it is shocking how they're just so visionary. Songs
and that song, that especially, I mean, I thought this "I Am a Diamond" in one case, but also "I Cried for Us."
Yes.
This thing, although it was written about a very different context, when she's saying "I've had enough," I don't know. You guys seem to be tearing up on stage. We in the audience were doing the same kind of thing. Very powerful.
Well, that one is very close to my heart, especially since I got to do it with my dear friend Anthony.
Yes.
And who's one of the greatest singers ever. And yeah, I couldn't help but read into the correlation between having enough with a bad relationship and also having enough with illness.
Very good. One of the great things, one of the remarkable things about you is how important family is to you, both personally and professionally, in terms of your singing. Your parents obviously are successful singer-songwriters in their own right. Your sister is. You have so many half-siblings that are also performing. You live in this sort of performing world. One of the things I thought was most remarkable about your sort of early career, you started off with a song about your mother, speaking of Kate McGarrigle, called Beauty Mark, where you talk about how similar you are to your mom and how different you are. That was on your very first album. Now your latest album, you have a song that more or less addresses your daughter, your young daughter, Viva, called Montauk, which is just transports you. It's such a great number.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you can talk about the different perspectives that you provide. In one case, you are the son or the child writing a song and singing a song about your mother when
Yep.
she's there, and then you're writing a song about your daughter, but it's sort of like projecting forward. What does it feel like to be to be the middle of that?
Well, needless to say, being from a matriarchal family, and the McGarrigles are intensely matriarchal. There were there's three sisters, so and hardly any men. I was one of the only surviving men of that family. I'm used to being somewhat of a vessel,
Okay.
Be it to shovel snow or sing at a party, but I've always been placed in between very powerful women, and it's a skill that one must practice, but nonetheless it's incredibly enriching and dramatic and I don't get to play a lot of sports, but that's probably okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and I mean, my daughter was born about a year after my mother passed away, and once again, I can only thank the spheres, for really allowing me to, just continue on with life and have to sort of pick up the pieces and look forward into the future with my daughter's upbringing ahead. So it was I think it was whatever the world taketh and the world giveth. And
Yeah. So, and with you, I mean, obviously, I think your daughter's around 2 now. She doesn't understand the song, probably doesn't know the song. Who did you write that song for, Montauk?
Well, Montauk is for her, it's for
Okay.
Viva, but it does mention my husband, Johan
Yes.
Weisbrot, and also it mentions at the end
Your-
my mother.
your
I mean,
mom.
it's a way. I mean, it's funny because, politically correct kind of child stories are in abundance, and there's something to be said for Judy has 2 moms and all of that stuff. It's cool. I'm totally for that, especially being of that ilk. But I'm also a big fan of good old fashioned scary kids tales that that reference death and reference madness or whatever, and the dark side. And I think it's important that to talk about that with your kids. I mean, not to dwell in it certainly, but it's a big part of life, and I also think kids are much smarter than we give them credit for, and perhaps probably have more to teach us in the end of the day when we bring up those big subjects.
You're talking about your family. You grew up with professional musicians. I mean, professional performers.
Yes.
You have a daughter. You're the mother of your child. Also, Leonard Cohen's offspring.
Right.
Grew up with that kind of life. Having lived the life that your parents and you have lived, do you hope for that life for Viva, or
No.
would your advice be steer clear?
Oh no, I have no agenda or plans for anybody.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's just important to expose her to as much as one can, and in terms of positive energy, and that's about the best I can do.
Does she know that you're a singer-songwriter? I mean, does she know who you are yet at 2?
No, I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, I want to ask you, we're talking about a lot of significant life events. You mentioned the passing of your mother, the birth of your child, but you also mentioned you have a husband now.
Yes.
You've gotten married.
Yes.
I wanted to talk to you about the significance of being married, both personally and politically.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, I married Jorn about a year ago, last August, the August before that, August of last year, and we had every intention of getting married for personal reasons, but it then just happened to coincide with a tremendous wave of change on the political front, especially in the United States, concerning gay marriage, and especially concerning New York State, where we spend most of our time. So it was very, very timely when it occurred, and I just consider that once again a positive omen, but also a kind of, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing. especially as an artist and a singer and someone who lives within the public's gaze, you do realize that your personal life is deeply embedded in what's going on in the world around you. There's no way to really separate yourself totally from the planet. So it's it's just another example of that.
And speaking of on the political front, I've heard that you occasionally are dedicating one of your songs to Ted Cruz. If so, I mean, because you're not overtly a political songwriter.
No.
What was that about?
Well, I have a song called "Going to a Town," which is about kind of my disillusionment surrounding the United States. It started with the war in Iraq, really. I've since come around a few times, but then every once in a while I'm back out there and in the doghouse.
Right.
Or the U.S. is back there in the doghouse, I should say. And certainly all of this business that happened with the shutdown, and just with this nugget of the right wing that insists on disrupting order at all costs. It's very distressing, and I think, and it's just a thing of there are so many problems in the world right now, and why are we creating new ones? It's pretty sad.
Very good. One of the things also I'm struck by, I had no idea. I know your album Out of the Game has been out for over a year now, but you have been touring non-stop. It feels like since April of last year. And I realized that it's something like 140 concerts you've done in support of the album and the like, and that 3 of the final 4 concerts you are right at the tail end are happening right here in Western Washington.
Yes.
In Edmonds, in Olympia, and in Tacoma.
Yes.
How do you feel? Are you exhausted? Does this feel like an albatross that you're about to finally?
I had a little. I'm actually in another phase right now. I did have a little bit of time off in August. And I started working on some other projects. So I have shifted my gaze towards both the theater and also film. All of these projects will be announced very soon.
Okay.
So I'm on another track, and that's actually the way you kind of got to do it. Making a new record or writing a new piece, you have to be 10 steps ahead of it. At all times. So I would even say that, in the middle of the last tour, I was already kind of, drifting.
Yes.
Mentally, but that's okay. You have to be able to juggle.
Yeah, you're drifting creatively.
Yes, drifting creatively. Yeah.
So how grueling is life on the road? I'd read something that you thought, boy, you might like to hang it up for a while and go in a different direction. Is that where
it's pretty grueling, but it's also, I think it's a lot probably like war, where you hit a certain level. It's not as bad as war. That's not what as sort of a light war metaphor.
Right.
Shall we use? Where you just kind of hit these lows or these highs and think, oh, I could never expand on this, but you're just right at the beginning of a whole new expansion.
Yeah.
There's these pockets of energy that just kind of come into play that are really thrilling, and dangerous too sometimes, because you don't want to depend on that.
In my research about you, you often, it comes up and it's kind of treated as a joke, but there is a kind of minor frustration about the fact that you aren't bigger than you are, that you're not Elton John or Katy Perry.
Right.
I feel like saying, have you ever listened to your music? That's why it's so much more complex and rich and all that.
Yeah.
Where are you on the stage? You are like maybe mid-career right now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about where you stand, and how frustrating or how big do you want to be? What career would you like?
Well, it's really hard to gauge. I just hit 40 this summer, and the bark is bigger than the bite, for sure. There's so much preparatory anxiety that you go through, and then once it happens, you realize, oh my God, I'm still really young. I still have a lot of energy. I'm still really excited about the future, and I have this experience now to lean on, and so this is a big celebration, this is it, and so I I've been I just saw that movie 20 Feet from Stardom.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, about the backup singer,
Yeah.
the backup vocalist, and it was really enlightening, and when they had the thing about Darlene Love, after cleaning houses for years, and then making this big comeback at 40. It was very inspiring, and I do, and even with Mr. Leonard Cohen, he really started later, and I mean there's a whole pool of artists who really flourished when they should, which is, I won't say near the end of their lives, but at a certain point, and certainly, I mean, you can't help. I mean, in mentioning all these people, I mean, you can't help but bring up Mr. Lou Reed.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
who's a dear friend of mine.
Oh,
and
is that right?
we were very, very close, and we're all very saddened by the loss of him. But on the other hand, as my aunt pointed out, he certainly outlived a lot of his contemporaries.
Definitely.
And I just was talking to some friends who were with him when he passed, and he was on a lawn chair by the pool.
Yes.
Apparently.
Good way to go.
And he really, I mean, I don't know, he was such a kind of inspirational figure in terms of how he lived his life as a human being by the end. I mean, he touched so many people's lives and was so kind and so interested in the way the world worked and was, and I don't know, it's such a great lesson because in the end of the day you just got to be a good person.
Yeah.
No matter what, forget about the songs, forget about the musicals, the movies. It's really about being a good person, and he did that, which is wonderful.
But also, I think professionally, he's a perfect role model for you.
Yes.
He never had, I mean, Walk on the Wild Side, I mean, he never had a big smash hit.
Yeah,
He never
yeah.
was top of the commercial heap,
yeah.
and yet nobody was probably more influential
Yes,
over the last
yes,
few
yes,
decades than
yes.
Lou Reed.
Yeah,
I think that's
No,
where.
I mean, listening to all his old records over the last yesterday, God, it happened yesterday. You can't help but think, oh my God, this could have been done today easily, and especially here in Seattle. I mean, if you think of grunge and
Yes.
Nirvana, I mean, there's like such a direct correlation.
Yeah. I want to ask you, there's something that I've always wondered about, and this could apply to Lou Reed as much to you. I think it's always curious. You've lived a life that you may not feel that it's rarefied, but at least to most of your audience, we haven't lived your life. You were born into a kind of a showbiz family.
Yeah.
You've lived the party life and the high life and all these kinds of things. And your songs reflect that. Your songs are so personal and idiosyncratic. How do you explain how something about you, some personal feeling or incident that you've lived through, can relate to, that other people can relate to who have never lived your kind of life?
Right.
How does that work, songwriting?
Well, I'm always on the fence about it because it is important to be humble, and it's important to be, of the world and to, relate to the everyday man and woman. But on the other hand, no, I'm completely different from everybody, and I'm a huge star and legendary character, and I fight between those two elements because I mean the truth is that in the end, you just hope you die by the pool.
Right. I'll have one of Lou Reed's deaths.
Yeah. So it's fine, but it is about the real life things. But in order to write those songs and to kind of go into those bubbles and cocoons and think that people are going to want to listen to it, requires a fair bit of ego and conscious kind of temptations. Temptations, I like that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's a struggle to figure out the balance within that, because you need both.
Yeah, and especially given my theater and movie criticism background, I'm fascinated by. I mean, you've been in little bits and pieces of movies and Aviator and the like, and you also seem to take. I don't know if it's creative pride, something in the videos you've done, and out of the game you do this thing with Helena Bonham Carter. It's very funny, and you get to play three very sort of caricatured types, singing types. What kind of career would you like to see in either movies or theater, musicals, stage?
Right,
I mean,
Well, my great passion is opera. I mean, and I've written one opera called Prima Donna, and I'm in the process of writing another. I don't necessarily think that I'll conquer the form in a kind of Verdian or Wagnerian way.
Yeah.
But I would love to give it back some of what it gave to me, and especially for singers, because opera singers, there's a lot of them, and they're very well trained and very dedicated, and they need some new material, just to brighten up their day. So I'm quite dedicated to that, and having dipped my toe in, I'm aware that you can't, you're not swimming in it.
Yeah.
So I want to continue on that path. I also have to say that everyone's been asking me for years, when are you going to write a musical? I mean, this is ridiculous.
You want us to shut up about it?
Yeah. So I have to. So it seems like the theater is sort of is pulling me quite intensely right now, which is I think a good place to go, because there's a lot of makeup.
Oh, you'd be a great Madame Butterfly. The question, because a lot of people don't get opera. It's funny because I grew up, my mom sang opera. I love opera. I've been in an opera course and the like. What is it for you? You're kind of a pop star with classical, I don't know what you would call them, but what is it about opera that appeals to you? Because I think most in your audience would kind of sort of scratch their head about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's there's a saying in the opera world that, opera, you don't choose opera, opera chooses you.
Okay.
And that's really the case. I mean, unless you're sort of baptized musically by the gods of the stage, the opera stage, then it's hard to kind of get it. It really, but I think it's kind of all or nothing. It's. You have to be completely dedicated when listening to it. It's not at all. It's terrible background music. It's quite dull a lot of the time. But then when you really get to where it's trying to take you, there's nothing like it.
Have you ever sung any opera? I know you've written.
I've sung opera. Yeah. I've sung. I studied it very briefly at McGill. Very briefly, like a month. But I sing. I listen to so much that I know. I know a little bit about how it's done, but I don't have the training to actually perform in an opera. Like I have to do it with a microphone and so forth. But I sing a lot of Berlioz actually.
L'Enridité. Very cool. Would you ever release an album?
Yeah, I could do that one. I could do that song. I know what I can do and what I can't do. Yeah. And that actually I could do.
Okay, I've got a bunch of things. I know we've got to keep this short, but I want to ask you about the title of your latest CD. I guess they still call them CDs.
Yeah.
Out of the Game. I want to ask you. I've seen that you said, well, you meant it somewhat ironically. Out of the game, are you out of the game personally? That you're married and settled. You've got a family life. Are you out of the game professionally? You're gonna hang it up.
Yeah.
What is out of the game?
Or am I out of the game? As in, I am a creature of the game. I've sprung out of the game.
I see. Very good.
I don't know. I mean, I thought of it as a tongue-in-cheek. Almost. I mean, I'll tell you that it's a good thing we did the video with Helena Bonham Carter in that fashion, because my original concept was me as Jesus, whipping people in the city, in the town square, and getting them out of the church or the synagogue, and which that would have been a bit much, I think. But
another gay Messiah, though.
Yeah, but it wasn't in a weird way that concept of looking at the younger generation and just being so frustrated with how obsessed they are with, lightweight things.
Musically?
Well, everything, whether it's musical or, fashion or, it's just, but on the other hand, by the end of the song, I'm obsessed with them too. Yeah. I mean, it's I kind of come around at the end because it is, you just have to follow youth wherever it goes.
One of the funniest things I think I've seen you say at one point in something, you call yourself a cross between Sid Vicious and Virgil Thompson. And I was wondering, do you feel like you've successfully moved from the Sid Vicious stage of life into Virgil Thompson, or do you want to disclaim that you ever uttered those?
Yeah, well, I've gotten more, Bernstein versus Bernadette Peters, sort of where,
Very good.
we're kind of narrowing the gap a little bit, but it's that's a good line.
You have to reuse it, huh? Well, speaking of which, the reason this is the 20th anniversary of River Phoenix's death, and I know that you thought a lot of him at the time, thought much of him, and I was wondering if you look at your career, because you went through some rocky times too, if you look at River Phoenix and say, boy, I survived that stage and now I'm here, thank God, or what are your reflections about that?
Well, I never knew River. I know Joaquin. I met Joaquin, and I actually saw Rain Phoenix the other day. But yeah, I mean, he, I guess the lesson with him, which one cannot forget, is that, I mean, I don't know how much he struggled all the time with drugs and so forth, but anything can turn on a dime. And here today, gone tomorrow, and I, there is this kind of indestructible myth that develops within your head when you're in show business and things are going really, really well, and you just need to be careful with that because it isn't true.
Very good. I've got a million things I'd like to ask you. I think I'll end with this one comment. This is a comment that's come up in a lot of interviews, and I wanted to ask you if this was an albatross around your neck or gave you a platform. And that's Elton John's famous comment that you were the best songwriter on the planet. How do you feel about that?
I think at one point a couple of years ago I did request that it was kind of taken out of the press release, which it wasn't, or maybe we tried to do it for 5 seconds, but I haven't been able to get rid of it, which it's a luxury problem. I mean, what's really good about it is that I actually have it on film. It's from an interview that he did on camera, so I'm not stretching it. It does exist. It did happen, but I don't know. There's a lot of things in my life right now that I've resigned to accepting, whether it's that or singing Hallelujah all the time, or being thought of as this egotistical maniac, which I'm really not, but everybody seems to want to think that sometimes. But you just sort of have to relax and let it go and just be. So it's fine.
You're sort of happily resigned to your fate?
Yes. I mean, being resigned to Elton John calling you the best songwriter on the planet isn't such a bad situation.
I should be so unlucky.
Yeah. So.
That's great. Okay, fantastic. I really appreciate you coming in. I'd like to talk to you about every single song you ever wrote and walk you through each one. I find you absolutely fascinating. I love your music.
Thank you so much.
I cannot say that enough. So.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.